Hey there, small business rock stars. Welcome back to Small Business Saturdays. We've had a month-long hiatus here, and we're very excited to be back with you guys. And as if anybody who knows me knows that, you know what, let's go into a really deep mindset topic right away. Why not, right? That's kind of the MO here. But we're going to dive into a mindset topic that I kind of posed to the MOS community this last week. And it starts with a simple question that I believe when we answer it, it could change everything for us. So here's the question. What do you think about when you're not thinking about anything? What's that default conversation going on in the back of your head, right? And not all the noise, not all the chaos, but what's the tone of that? What's the pattern of that? So, it's just kind of, it's those times when there's not any distractions happening. You're not in the middle of tasks. Just that, hey, I'm standing in the shower here, nothing to do. I'm just taking a deep breath as I put my head down after a long day. Are those thoughts that are happening there? Are they peaceful? Are they hopeful? Or maybe it's something else. So that's what we want to unpack and explore today, Kylene.
Yeah, it's that little voice in our head. It's what we're focusing on today. Because whether we realize it or not, that's our default mindset shaping our business, our stress levels, our general sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
That's what's going on in the background. So it's that inner voice. Is it a coach or a critic for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, my name's Aaron Montgomery, and I'm the author of this book, The Fundamentals of Business Success here.
And I am Kylie Montgomery, co-author of The Gratitude Shift. Do I have to show it? I have some notes in mine.
Oh, okay. All right. Here we go. We both got that right here. So,
and a mindset and yoga coach. And so this is Small Business Saturdays, and we're here to help you grow a business that you actually love showing up for every day.
Yep, absolutely. And so before we dive in, we'll have our little intro to get us pumped up and ready to go. But I want you guys to go ahead and do me a favor and hit that like button. We've got some people tuned in already. Chandler, so awesome to have you here. Craig, great to have you along with us. He says, welcome back. Chandler is grateful for today. We're grateful to have Chandler here with us. So take a quick moment here. Hit that like button. Make sure you're sharing this on your social media channels. Put it in all the groups that you're in. And then, as you kind of get a chance to do that, just tell us, what's your inner voice been saying lately? And again, I know that our inner voice has all sorts of different conversations, right? I don't think, you don't want to walk a mile in my shoes. You want to spend 5 seconds in my brain if you really want to be terrified, but that kind of idea. And I get that, but what we're after here today is kind of what's the pattern, right? What's the general consensus at the end of those conversations?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is it what we might label positive versus what we might label negative, right? Is it fear, anxiety, worry versus what we're ultimately would be a better place to work from is positivity, joy, hope, gratitude, like Chandler shared. So what's your inner voice been saying lately? What's the pattern there? That's what we'd love to know. So with that, Kylene, how about we hit our intro and then we will dive right back in.
Sounds great.
Dark days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke through, we rise above. No more feeling sad, we're fueled by love. Our small business is shining, reaching new heights. With the support of our success group, we're taking flight with our words on. The vision so clear, building our dreams with no more fear. Together we're resilient, unstoppable force. With our success group,
let's talk some business.
Laughing at the confetti cannon there.
Yeah, definitely. So my favorite part, though, I just have to watch that video every time because my favorite part is after you shove me, that kind of like thing that you do. That's awesome.
I had a little bit too much enjoyment from that.
Yeah, you have to check in on that, but awesome. All right. Well, Kylene, for our longtime SPS listeners, you might remember that we typically break down the content into 3 different pillars. And we're going to continue to do that. But we kind of wanted to reshape this a hair and have it match up more with the fundamental formula, the fundamental process, right? So that's plant, prepare, and pollinate. And so with that, let's see here. That's my favorite part. Chandler says the shove. That's my favorite part. Um, Chandler says, I miss this song. I would say when I'm not thinking of anything, I really go back to whatever I'm doing in my life to grow, reading, thinking of goals, listening to the coach in my head. Love it. Love it.
Awesome.
Good. All right. And then somebody's calling me. Awesome. Love that. So with that being said, Kylene, let's dive into the plant section here. And I think we're going to kind of like set this up and then really spend a lot of time in the pollinate section today. So let's start us off there.
Sounds good. Yep. So the plant phase we're going to start out with, and that's our awareness and wellness. So we're planting a little bit of awareness. And so asking yourself again that question, what do you think about when I'm not trying to think about anything? So again, that's your default setting, and that's what matters because your brain's on autopilot and that inner voice is going to take the wheel. So when life is happening, that's what's going to show up for you.
Absolutely. And that's where mindset really becomes wellness in a lot of ways, Kylene. If your default is that anxiety, that overwhelm, I'm not doing enough, that will shape everything. Right.
Yeah.
So from that space of saying I'm not doing enough or I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, the energy levels that you have, the types of decisions that you make. I know for me, when I'm in that space, right, when I'm feeling that, it's way easier to grab that extra thing of sugar or, oh, I'm driving and I need that entire bag of Hostess donuts that I just had this last trip to Peoria. Right. But just how you show up for your business when that's the default, right?
Yeah.
So that's where this mindset becomes wellness.
Yeah. And we're not saying you're pretending that everything is okay.
Yeah.
It's just about noticing what's really going on. And then when you're not in your performance mode, right? You're not showing up the way you want to show up. And what is that script running in the background during those moments?
Yeah. And so I think what we want to really try to unpack here, again, it's not the specific things that you're thinking about, right? That is, obviously that's important. And so don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say, all of the specifics are not crucial to this, but really trying to kind of reframe what are those thoughts, right? Because I can be thinking, let's use Chandler's example here, of, when I think about whatever I'm doing in my life to grow, that reading, thinking of goals and stuff like that, right? Like I can be reading and thinking about what I read. I can be thinking about my goals and thinking about, what those are. But depending on what default mode is on, right? Whether that's the hopeful, positive, energetic mode. And then when I think about my goals, right, that motivates me to action. But when I'm in that, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not doing enough, I'm anxious, right? And then I think about my goals, then what happens? I go, oh, my goals are too big. I didn't even know where to start. I throw my hands up in the air. Yep. Right. So I think what we're trying to get to here is figuring out what that default is. And then honestly asking ourselves, does it serve you? Right. Is this space, because some of us definitely need a little bit more of that, poke prod motivation, right? We need to be going like, darn it. Okay, I'm going to do more. Right. But others of us don't need that. We need you got this, let's go, that type of thing. And so that's the kind of like that voice when you're just sitting there with nothing else going on. That's what we're trying to figure out what's right for you. So if it doesn't serve you, the next thing is we tend to want to judge that. Right, Kylene, and maybe you can speak to this. I know this is off script a hair, but just speak to that, right? Like, your whole idea.
Yeah. So when you judge it and you label it and you tend to always go to the negative, it's just what we do. Sometimes when we're in that mindset in that moment, that's sucking our energy. That's creating that space. It's taking away that momentum that you've built, that belief in yourself by putting those negative and judging what's happened instead of just acknowledging that it's there.
Yeah, Absolutely. And so the second that we label something, in a lot of ways, we've just taken away any potential value that we have for it in the future. At that point, right? I know for me, once I've decided, I've kind of made that decision in my head that this was a good thing or a bad thing, I can just throw it out, right? I'm not going to be able to squeeze any more value out of that. The quicker I can leave that in the past, the better off I'm going to be. So the idea here is let's just get curious with what our inner voice is saying, what the pattern is, and see if we can work together with it to plant something a little bit more supportive. So before we get into go ahead if you got something to share, but then before we get into the prepare part, I want to talk to some of the people in the chat here real quick.
Yeah. No, I think go ahead and check in with the comments here. It looks like we have some good ones.
Yeah, we do, definitely. So Mo checking in saying good morning. Well, still morning here. Is that kind of like it's always 5 o'clock somewhere type thing? It's always morning somewhere, Mo. So we're all good.
It's time for coffee.
Absolutely. I'm drinking some coffee and it's noon, so we're good. Craig says the 3 Ps fit with me being at a beekeeper's field day with the family. My wife and son are out in the field. I love that. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's perfect. Cool. All right. Well, Kylene, let's dive into the mindset side of this. That the prepare phase, I guess, is what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the prepare phase. So how do we shift that default setting? And really, that's what this whole mindset part is we're shifting. We're becoming aware, right? And now we're going to shift that story.
Absolutely. And you already kind of gave us this, which is awesome, right? But that reflection of, okay, what is my inner voice really saying? And letting go of any shame, letting go of those types of, again, labels. And I get that that's hard. So here's what makes this so difficult, at least for me. And I believe this is everybody's human nature, right? We want to categorize things. Our conscious brain only has so much power, right? Ability. And the only way that we can process everything that's coming at us all the time is by putting things in neat little tidy buckets. And those buckets are created based on our past experiences. So, something like that has happened to me in the past, and I remember the outcome being bad, so I'm going to throw that in the bad bucket, right? Or, that chocolate donut made me feel good. It gave me that energy boost, so I'm going to put that in the good bucket. Right? And when that happens right now, all of a sudden we have a hard time shifting our perspective. So when we let go of those buckets as best we can, the shame, or even this is a really great thing. Right? One of my favorite proverbs is the farmer, the Chinese farmer. Do you remember that one, Kylene?
I do. If you could share it though, because I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
a good storyteller, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but and I'll just do the quick high level. It goes much deeper, but basically an old Chinese proverb where a farmer's horse runs away. All the neighbor people show up and are like, "Oh my gosh, that's so terrible. I'm so sorry." Blah blah blah. And then the next day, the horse returns, and all the neighbors show up and go, "Oh my gosh, that's so great!" Because the horse returned with like 3 wild horses. So now instead of having 1 horse, he has 4. And in I like that, Chandler. Sorry, you got me there. But and anyhow, the Chinese farmer, his reply to this is maybe so, maybe not. Right? He's not putting it into a bucket, because then the next day his son gets on one of the wild horses, falls off, breaks his leg, and again the neighbor's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so terrible. I'm so sorry." And he's like, "Maybe so, maybe not." The next day after that, the army people show up, and they're looking for all of the able-bodied men to go off to war. And because his son had broken his leg, they don't take him off to war. And again, the neighbors show up and say, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing! What a stroke of luck for you and your son." And he's like, "Maybe so, maybe not." Right? So it's that it could go on forever. Something that obviously getting hurt and injuring ourselves, that can definitely get into that bad bucket real quick, and it makes sense. But the reality is that maybe saved that kid's life, right? Potentially. Again, this is a parable, not a true story that I'm aware of. But we've all had those kinds of stories in our lives, though, right? Something that seemed really horrible in the moment. I mean, I can go to my personal life, right? I certainly didn't want to get divorced. It certainly wasn't a good thing in the moment. But if I look back now, if that would not have happened, I wouldn't be with Kylene and be at this place in my life where I'm at. So that had to happen, and those types of things. So, and even in the small moments, right? Oh gosh, that was. But then maybe that was the extra moment that you needed to, let something else show up, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, heck, just before we started this, right before we're getting ready to go live, the air conditioning kicked on. It was really loud, right? And I was like, oh, darn it. But at the end of the day, like, okay, that gave us an extra second, because then right after that, you like, hey, how are we starting this? And we had that opportunity to say that, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
just what are some questions that we can ask here, Kylene, to kind of reset a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's what's that voice in your head saying when no one else is around?
Yep.
And it
And
just really being aware of that, because sometimes it's, we think about that question, maybe nothing comes up right away. So you really have to spend some time with it.
yeah, for sure. And then just keeping that going, right? Is it helping you take action, or is it
Yeah.
keeping you stuck?
Yep.
And what can you learn from the last time something didn't go as planned? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That hindsight moment of, right, like, oh darn it, that was, but then, oh
Yep.
look what actually came out of that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So
Yep.
this was, and I would say probably still is. I would love to say I've conquered it, but as you know, self-compassion is not a natural state for me, Kylene. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe explain to everybody why you've been a great teacher for me in that, and continue to work on me with that.
So I think you guys have figured out by now, Aaron is a high achiever and a high performer. That's important to him.
Mhm.
And he's also very goal oriented. And when I met him, he was very much driven, and he was always upset and beating himself up because he wasn't to that end goal yet.
Yeah.
Even though he's having all these successes along the way, he was missing all of that journey and the joy that comes with that because he hadn't achieved that goal yet.
Yeah.
And so it was those stories. He forgot to pause, he forgot to reflect and listen to what his brain was telling him and allow himself to see the progress that he's making, difference he was making every single day. So I think you've gotten much better. I mean, it's still your natural tendency, and I think that's your superpower. So I don't ever want to crush that, but enjoy the journey along the way.
Yeah.
For you, and not beat yourself up if things didn't go your
Yeah.
way.
And I love that you said that, because as you mentioned, I think my default is still that kind
Mhm.
of, and and that's really important for people to understand. We're not trying to change who we are,
Yep.
right? But what I've learned is that I have to understand that that default isn't the finish line. That isn't the stop point, right? I can have that reaction. Sometimes I catch the reaction and I don't even get there, and that's okay, and that's good, right? And that doesn't feel crushing to me. But sometimes the reaction just happens. But as I was starting to grow into this, that became my new way to beat up myself. Like, oh darn it, you did it again. Right? And so it like that reaction is going to be there, as Kylene said. That's part of my superpower, so we don't want to take that away.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, if I can then be intentional about what that actually means, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the next step. Okay, what's the growth out of this?
Mm-hmm.
How can I be honest with myself and say, what can I actually do in the future, right? Because the past doesn't matter, and moving forward. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's just really remembering that you don't have to be perfect.
yeah,
You're learning to listen to how you're responding to an event that happens. That's really what you're doing here, and then what you can find some truth from that moving forward to learn and grow.
yeah, absolutely. And here's the hard thing, guys. When we're on this earth, we will never be perfect. It's not a possible state of being as humans in our current state. So we can be really darn good at something. We
Mm-hmm.
can feel really proud of what we're doing, right? But this whole idea about like, oh, I've got to be perfect at it, that will hold you back more than anything. And so I think just maybe help us, Kylene, with what's something you might say instead when you're kind of feeling that.
Yep, these are good things to remember too. It's definitely something I use. I'm not failing; I'm figuring it out. I mean, if you just think about that, I'm figuring it out. It gives you that opportunity to give yourself that breathing room to grow and learn and continue to move forward. Another thing is the small steps still counts. So that's especially when that goal is really big and it's going to take a little bit to achieve it. All those small steps over time, every one of them was important.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kylie, we get to reprogram the script, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think to me, that's the most exciting part. And I know maybe sometimes I'm weird like that, right? Like I like to take on those challenges.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my superpowers. I love looking for solutions and finding that. But I think for all of us, the really great part, regardless of whether you're like me in that or not, is none of it's final, right? We get to change it. We have the ability to change that together, and it just starts with one action, right? One different thought, one catch yourself in the moment and say, hey, it's okay, cancel, let's try a different thought there. And those small shifts, one shift at a time. And I think the hardest part, at least for me, was I had to be willing to just sit there with that and sit there with those thoughts and let go of the self-judgment, right? And just be accepting of what we're currently hearing from that inner voice, but gently question the validity of that. And I
Yeah.
think that was I wouldn't say it was the hardest part for me, but I know that's really a hard thing for others, right? In a lot of cases, right? So how does that show up for you, Colleen?
I mean, I think it's huge. I mean, our brain is designed to keep us safe, and so it's going to do everything it can to do that. And so if we listen to what our inner thoughts are in those moments, and just question, is that actually real or not? And it gives you that opportunity to give yourself and be that coach instead of the critic. It
Yeah.
allows you to reframe that and move forward
Yeah.
instead of getting stuck in that cycle that keeps us where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think going back to the accepting part on the front end, right? Whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
that your inner voice is saying, right? Aaron, you weren't good enough. Okay. Can I accept that? But then can I gently go, okay, maybe in that moment I wasn't good enough. Maybe I didn't show up as my best self right there, but that was only in that moment, right? It's not that I'm actually not good enough.
Yeah.
I just need to look for ways to catch that in those, challenging times, or look for ways that I don't put myself in those situations, right? But what I've learned for me is there is a pattern. Like the pattern for me is when I'm tired, I don't show up as my best self, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I can fix that though. That's the cool part, right? It doesn't happen. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I can't go from like all in all the time to doing nothing and being more restful. I can be more intentional about what I do. And, instead of watching the television show, we can go up to bed, right? Like last night, we got plenty of sleep, right? I could have stayed up all night and binged terrible television, but we chose not to. And that was, a really great choice there. So,
Yeah. And then just adding on to the accepting part of it, you already had the thought, right? So when it shows up, just acknowledge that it was there. Don't beat yourself up, and then just, use what we've just talked about here moving forward. But,
yeah.
it showed up. And so becoming aware of it is, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't put those labels on it and create all that negative energy again. Just accept it and then listen to that voice. And is it true or not?
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Well, completely off topic, but is it weird that I try to avoid the word acknowledge? Because every time I think of that, all I think about is Lewis, professional wrestling, and Roman Reigns.
No, because whenever I hear someone say it too, that's where my brain goes to.
Okay.
I think you guys said it like every day, multiple times a day for a while.
Acknowledge me. All right. Sorry. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, don't get yourself into the hole of professional wrestling. But I want to get Craig's comment here. I need to break out the pom-poms for some of my successes lately and actions. Craig, I got them right here. Let's do
We're
it.
ready.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah. I saw the magnets you were making. I saw your conversation about saying that you're a photographer. Some really good stuff. So if there's other stuff, please share in here. And the rest of you guys that are tuning in live, share your wins. Let's do it. Kylie got me these pom-poms for a reason. So
Yeah, we got to use them.
yep. Especially since all the little pieces keep coming off. We'll see how long I have them for.
They were high quality ones, Aaron.
Yeah. I think
You
I
shouldn't
hope
be
they're
doing
not.
that.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, let's shift gears into our final pillar section here, the pollinate section. Since Craig's out on the bee field there, it'll be perfect, right? But really talking about aligned actions, and so I want to talk about action. You guys know me; I love talking about action because the voice doesn't change in theory, right? We could sit and talk about it all day. It only changes through intentional actions, and honestly, we if we just spent the last 30 minutes and none of this matters, so we just wasted 30 minutes if it doesn't lead to progress and lead you closer to your idea of success. So I'm sure some people might be tuned in here and saying, well, who cares what my inner voice is saying? Maybe you feel like it's motivating to you, that kind of whipping you in the back. You're like the horse going down the stretch, taking the extra whips. Some of you might be saying, well, I don't even notice it, right? It's just so much noise in there. Why does that matter?
Yeah.
So, what do we say to those folks, Kylie?
Yeah, I would say it matters a lot. That inner voice and your subconscious are in charge when you need that energy to do a little bit more. It's our regulator that helps or hinders us from stretching outside of our comfort zone. So, like I said, that growth that happens as a result. And that voice really controls how we show up in those important moments. It's our default setting.
Yep.
So that's why we're talking about this.
Yep. And that's why, again, this first 30 minutes, awareness is just the beginning. What really matters is how you respond. And what really stood out to me is I want to share something that one of the amazing people inside of the Masters of Success said recently in a Slack. And in fact, she's in the comments here today, said, we all need to stop being so hard on ourselves. There are people sitting on the couch wondering where their life went. At least we're doing the best we can. And that makes us warriors. Yeah. Right? That was powerful. Wow. That knocked me off my seat metaphorically, that moment.
Yeah. I mean, that message of grace it's so needed and it's so important. And the way she phrased it, for me too, it definitely touched me and moved me because we're often so hard on ourselves and we just really, we would never treat a friend that way. We would never treat someone we care about that way, but we do it to ourselves. So grace really just reframes it. And what is crucial is the next step after you give yourself that grace. And this is, I think, where you come into your superpower, Aaron. Yeah. But really, peace and compassion are your fuel for your next move. And it's not the end of that conversation. It's not the end of that moment. That's what's going to keep you going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And so ultimately, Kylie, my whole goal as we were putting this together was this is what I really want to share, right? Like all that just talked about, super important. But as you mentioned, this is where my superpower kicks in. Yeah. And it's that inner voice that matters. And to get in alignment with that inner voice, that voice really does need to become your number one fan. And when that voice is your number one fan, that coach, right? Because there's a difference between your bestie who's going to tell you, you're great all over and over, and a coach who's your number one fan, right? Because that coach is going to push you. That coach is going to ask you to be honest with yourself. That coach is going to say, hey, I think you can do better than that, right? But that coach is also going to be your number one supporter. That coach is also going to, help when you're at your lowest. And so that voice, right, this whole idea of having it as a coach instead of a critic, it does start with grace. And it starts with what our friend at MOS shared, that we need to stop being so hard on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so again, don't take any of what I'm about to say as I love how much focus we put on grace as this is a really crucial starting point. And to remember that this is not about shame or regret. This is about reflection that helps. Mm-hmm. And then noticing what didn't go well and then asking ourselves, what can I learn? Instead of what I think we actually ask. And we might not ask it in these words, but I think the tone we use in our inner voice is, what's wrong with me? Why am I so broken? Right? Those types of things. Yeah. But with all this reflection on grace, I guess this is where, again, the next step is where I see people, then they're stuck. They're stuck in that, okay, I'm giving myself grace. I'm giving myself grace. Awesome. And then they're going, but I'm not getting anywhere. And I go, I know, I know. And here's why, right? Because they think that grace that is the finish line. Well, I'm doing the best that I can. And that's 100% true. And in that moment, we're doing the best that we can with our current level of skill, knowledge, and ability.
Yeah.
So grace is that starting point. Warriors are action takers, and they utilize that grace as a stepping stone.
Yeah. Yeah. So what it really looks like to move forward from grace is you say yes because you're doing the best that you can right now, right?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
what we're starting with. But then when you know better, when you feel that inner nudge inside of you, that whisper that you're not at your potential or there's more,
Yeah.
that's what you need to build on. And that's where that growth happens. So it's really, slowing down sometimes to listen to that voice so you can use that to speed up. Your favorite thing to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, let grace be that landing place when things go sideways. But I think what I've seen, and even I have done this before, is we just kind of unpack and live there. We're
Yeah.
like, okay, this feels way better than that place I was at before, so I'm just going to live there. And that becomes our comfort zone, right? My comfort zone of just constantly giving myself grace. And it needs to be your launching pad.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's really where that inner voice becomes the inner coach. You have that transformation and not the critic that says you messed up again, but the one who says you've come so far. Let's just take one more step today. Getting outside that comfort zone. So how do you do that, Aaron? Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, I think, you and I have 4 practical steps here, and we'll take turns kind of sharing back and forth here. But before we get into those practical steps, first I want to say hi to Barb. Good to see you, Barb. Welcome back, and then that's on us, not you guys. But we needed a little breather, right? With all the new things that I've got going on, I need to get my feet underneath me, and we weren't going to give you guys quality content here on Small Business Saturday until I got that opportunity. So we're ready to be back in the saddle here, though. So excited about the SBS is happening forward. But Vicky says, I'd like to not be thinking about nothing, quote unquote, but constantly I'm thinking about things, right? And I think, again, it's not specifically the things that we're thinking about, but it's the tone of those thoughts that we're really trying to unpack here, right? The pattern of those thoughts, right? So if you're thinking about those things and then that follows with beating yourself up, or that follows with, I'm not worthy, or I'm so bad, versus you're thinking about those things and going, I think I can do it. There's hope, right? There's opportunity. There's good things in front of me.
Yeah.
So we can be thinking about all sorts of things. And again, anybody that's tuned into Small Business Saturdays, right? We're entrepreneurs, we're go-getters. So I can't imagine anybody's thinking about nothing, right? Maybe you've been able to clear your brain enough to give yourself that space, and sometimes that's a good space. But boy, I'm bad at meditation. I'll tell you that. But I try. So anyways, I just wanted that's a great comment, Vicky. Thank you for sharing that. But yeah, Kylene, let's share these 4 practical steps with people. And this is, again, the steps that we take after we get to that space of grace, right? So how do we go from grace to growth? And these are some steps that Kylene and I have seen work for us and some others around us. But number 1, Kylene, is just to name the voice, right? Again, we need this to be our number 1 fan, our coach, our biggest supporter. Why would we not give them a name? Right? And so give that voice a name or personality, get to know it. Where's it at right now? Is it fearful? Is it reactive? And if you want to take this one step further, and this is what's worked for me, is I realize my inner voice is also a connection to the divine. And the positive, loving, encouraging words that show up, that's God. That's God talking directly to me. And the negative, fearful, and stressful kind of voices, sounds that I'm getting, that's really the devil disconnecting me from God. And so for me personally, I'd rather be having a conversation with God, with love, right? And so, and the cool part is now I get to know that, right? I get to become closer with that and understand what I'm actually hearing, and then utilize that to take the next step. Which, what's step number 2, Kylie?
Yeah. Rewrite the script. So when the critic says you're falling behind or something like that, try just responding with, I'm moving at my pace and I'm still going. So you get to change that story you say after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the third step here is, if that voice is, saying you're falling behind, you're getting that, is to prove the action, prove it, right? Actually do the thing. So if that inner critic is showing up, prove it wrong.
Yep.
If that inner coach is showing up, give it reason to be more proud of you, right? So do one small thing. And again, if it's the critic, do one thing that's saying that you can't do, right? Oh, you can't have that hard conversation. Oh, you can't reach out to that customer. Oh, you can't share your yoga with people that aren't my close friends, right? Sorry, Kylie, that was a jab.
That was a little personal.
sorry. You can throw it right back at me. And I love this. Craig says, I've named my chat GPT. Time to give my inner self a name too. Absolutely. My chat GPT, his name is Chuck, by the way. So just FYI. But, again, finish the project. Give your inner coach evidence that it's working. And so that's number 3, to prove it with action.
Yeah. And then number 4, one of my favorite parts is celebrate progress like a coach would. So, your coach doesn't just fix your flaws. They also cheer you on and look at your growth and acknowledge that. So end your day by writing one thing you're proud of, just one. And you'll realize over time how many things that you can celebrate, all those accomplishments along the way, like we talked about early on. Aaron just didn't get to that end goal early on before he put this stuff into action, and he missed all these milestones that he had, even those small steps to celebrate every day.
Yep, absolutely. And you get some pom-poms too if you want. So
yeah.
there you go. So, Kylie, I think trusting this version of ourselves that's already growing, right? And so if we let the real us, the real you, drive the next aligned step, I think you're going to see a huge shift, a huge ability to make that. You're going to see things kind of turbocharged and get there faster than you could have even imagined, when that's the tone of the voice, that's the pattern of the voice, of the I can do, the positivity. And this is not to say that you're not going to be thrown. In fact, I would probably throw a little warning out there for folks that the more of this that you do, the more of that shift, the more tests you're going to be given. The more difficult things are going to be thrown at you, especially at first, right? Because that's when you're the most vulnerable to just go back to that state of fear, shame, perfectionism, all of those things that we're working to grow out of. And so just trusting that the real you is that empowered, that unlimited, that abundant person. And I know that if you do that consistently, you hang on to that, you surround yourself with a group of people that are willing to also be that type of person for themselves, and your support team, that you're going to achieve what you want to achieve when you want to achieve it.
Yeah. I think that's really important. Having the right people around you too, as you go through this, because you're starting to pay attention to what's happening, and it's easy to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I was really so hard on myself, but you're not staying there. You're just starting this. So I like that you brought that up, Aaron. And so just remember, you're our inner coach. It's already there within us. We've just not been paying attention to it. We're paying attention to the inner critic, not the inner coach. And so personally, I'm excited for this conversation, just to reclaim it. I hope you guys are too, to really, speak your truth over your effort and just give yourself grace and then move forward. We're acknowledging our thoughts and the patterns that we're seeing. And so once you acknowledge it, we get to rewrite that script and continue to move forward and then celebrate along the way.
Yep. Yep. And I love how you kind of just tied that up to speak truth over your effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first part of it. Give yourself grace, but don't unpack, right?
Yeah.
Give yourself grace and then move.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of moving, Kylie, we want to keep this conversation going. We appreciate everybody that popped in here and tuned in and threw a few comments in here. But challenge yourself. Challenge yourself this week to go a little bit deeper. And we're going to give you the platform to do that inside of the Entrepreneur Success Hub. So if you'll go over to osg.link/group, make sure that you're in the group and all signed up. And Craig's been posting in there. Let's get in there. Let's make that group very active. And on Monday, you're going to start. There's going to be a post every day where we're going to keep this conversation going. And I'm going to challenge you to be part of the conversation, not just a lurker, not just I'm going to hit the love button, not just that's awesome. Actually put a meaningful comment onto each of those posts. And I'm not asking you to do this for me. I'm not asking you to do this for anybody else in the group. I'm asking you to do this for yourself, because once you do that for yourself, you're going to find out what I've learned is you can't outgive the universe. You can't outgive God. And so once you start going, oh, I'm just going to give without expectation. I'm going to participate without expectation. I'm going to be me without expectation. That voice and perspective is going to help everybody. But most importantly, it's going to help you. So we need your voice and perspective. And yes, I said need. And then to kind of tie that up, Kylene, our inner voice is so powerful. And I just want everybody to have that on their side, right? I want everybody to be able to learn what we've learned, Kylene, and just make sure that it's on our side with us.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely not alone. We are here for you, one aligned step at a time. So that intention is right there, and we're definitely cheering you on.
Absolutely. All right, you guys. Well, make sure you guys tell your friends about Small Business Saturday, the fact that it's back. Post it in other groups you're in. Invite people to our Facebook group at osg.link/group. I'll even put it up on the website, maybe. Okay. You're trying to do too many things at once. Shocking. But we're going to be back next week. And as we restart here, right, I want to just try to cover as many things as we can and hit all the different things, right? Whatever's showing up as important. And I came across some information that I think, not came across it, but I was just thinking about this the other day. And so we went big mindset here today, right? Obviously a lot of kind of high level wooey stuff for some people. So if that's not your gig, that's totally fine. I think the faster you make that your gig, the faster you're going to get to success, but that's a whole different story. So next week, I want to talk about something very practical that every business owner can take something away from this, and it will immediately help your business. And so we're going to talk about ways to reduce friction in the buying process for your customers, right? So sometimes we're so close to it, right? We think that it works this way, and oh yeah, they just do this and do this, and they've got the order placed. But when we step out of our shoes and step into our customer's shoes and we go, why isn't anybody buying? It might be as simple as the fact that there's a big area of friction that you're not even noticing, right? Like, why is it so hard to do that? Like, I just want to give you money. Why do I have to jump through all of your hoops, right? Mm-hmm. and so if that's, even if you're really good at this, I think just having this conversation. So if you think you've got your process down to where there's no friction for your customers, please show up, participate, help others out. And then I bet you're going to learn something from somebody else too, where you might go, oh, interesting. So anyhow, tell your friends, make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel at liveosg.com. And you can hit that little bell. I don't know. We'll have to get Lewis in here to see what kids do these days. But yes, subscribe, hit the bell, like all that kind of fun stuff, Kylie.
Yeah. And we're cheering you on. You've got this. And we're excited to see you over in the Entrepreneur Success Hub.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We will catch you next week.
All right. Bye.
overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke